Cheers, and welcome to the tabletop discussion on the Voluntary Virtues Network. And you are just 17 beliefs away from true freedom. Today I'm here with Mike, Christy, and Matt, and we'll be discussing that topic here on the Voluntary Virtues Network. Today we're drinking Swami by Pizza Port in Carlsbad.
It's delicious.
Notice I have an empty glass.
Very good.
It's an IPA.
6.8%.
Yeah.
Wasn't the Solana Beach one like 7.2 or something?
I believe it was 7.4. That's what I read on the internet.
I felt it.
It's still very good though.
Yeah.
It's really good.
It's good.
Nice citrusy flavor.
Yeah.
Brewed for over 20 years, right?
Yeah.
I'll give them that. If you've been brewing this for 20 years, they're a good brewery.
Standing power or lasting power. Something like that.
Yeah. So anyway, on to our topic. You're just 17 beliefs away from true freedom. This is an article on liberty.me by Wally Conger. And he wrote, when I was a baby anarchist, I thought once we get rid of the state, then I'll be happy. First of all, I love that term, baby anarchist. I think I first heard it from Jeffrey Tucker, and I just love that analogy of being born born into anarchy.
So is it like a born-again anarchist?
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of like a born-again
Really?
Christian, a born-again anarchist?
Now, in my mind, I get a very vivid picture of like a toddler with like black diapers that has like a circle A on it. But that's me, you know?
Why didn't I have those when I was a toddler?
I can so see you with that.
So anyway, these are 17 beliefs that should lead to true freedom. The first one is the general population does not know what freedom is.
Well, can I go back a second?
Okay.
So you said the 17 beliefs that should lead you to? I didn't get that from reading that.
The title.
You're just 17 beliefs away from true freedom is the title of the article.
Okay, all right. Okay.
So
That's the premise.
implying that these 17 beliefs will lead you to true freedom.
Okay.
In the idea of integrating them into your thinking, you know?
And so these 17 beliefs are located where? Where could somebody
Well,
follow
I think we'll be
this?
linking that below.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll link that in the...
Link that
the
below
comment section.
below this video.
Yes, there's going to be a little box and, you know, giving information.
One thing that's good to know was that Wally Conger didn't actually come up with these 17 truths. It was Sky Adaris,
yeah.
and Natalie Hall. I think those are pseudonyms, though. Written in the 1970s.
Oh.
So this is...
Old shit.
Yes.
Lost somewhere in a dusty corner only to be revealed
But actually,
today.
that explains some of them because I think some of these conversations have evolved since then. So no, that's
Yeah, I would
actually-
agree with that.
Yeah.
And we'll get on to that. Number one, the general population does not know what freedom is. So what do you think about that one, Christy?
Well, I really, now that you brought it back to that was a 70s conversation, I actually can understand why they said that because in the 70s it was more true back then. But I think there are more people now that have woken up to the fact of what freedom is. So that explains it.
Would it be more by a percentage or just an overall amount of people?
Yeah, general population is kind of a
I would think if I went and did a survey about just anybody walking there and asked them what freedom was, they'd give me an idea. They get pretty close to what freedom was. I really do think they would. I don't think it would be
I don't know about that. I think kind of instinctually we understand what freedom is generally, but I don't know that many people could come up with a good definition.
Do you think
of
we
freedom.
could?
I don't know.
We could try.
I think we could give it a shot, right?
Give it a shot.
Does anybody have something they have off the top of their mind?
It's kind of like free will.
Reference
Don't
episode
stop that
2.
again.
Reference episode 2.
Well, but only because free will is similar to freedom.
They definitely relate in a way.
So what was the definition of free will? It was
having something that does not constrain you
Right.
in action.
right, and to me it's the same thing. Is being free is being able to do as I choose, without being constrained by anything.
Without coercion.
Right, without coercion,
force.
without force.
And I think that would be generally accepted by pretty much most people of the libertarian mindset or maybe anarchist mindset, if we want to broaden that out. I would think that's fairly agreeable, as long as you're being able to do what you want, so long as you're not harming others or forcing them to do something. That's fairly agreeable.
Yeah.
So what is your idea of what the general population, if you don't think people believe in freedom, what do you think they would say freedom is?
Well, I mean, how many people who are restricted by the government still call themselves free?
Yeah.
Even
No,
with those
but I
restrictions?
think they call the United States a free country only because it's what they think the country is. But I think if you actually ask
It's
them
because
what
of the
the
propaganda.
right, the propaganda. I think if you ask them what freedom was, I think they would come up with a definition that would be what freedom is. It's just they haven't made that connection.
Many
that
people,
we're,
I think.
Yeah, I don't think they made the connection.
There's
that
some
we're
people
really
who
not
are
free.
thoroughly brainwashed out there, though. I talked to somebody the other day who was thoroughly convinced that we were free, and her definition of freedom was that you're not in a cage.
Ooh.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
that is
Pretty,
Well, I guess it's
pretty
a
narrow
level,
definition of
but I
freedom.
guess
As long as there
it's-
are
So-
no bars,
so there
you're
are
free.
some-
I guess
Okay.
so. Okay.
So there are some people who really don't know what freedom is, but I think you're right. I think most people would. I think the problem is in the mind rather than in the definition. So
Right.
I
yes,
think
definitely.
I think a lot of people hold strong cognitive dissonance that keeps them from seeing the gun in the room,
I
so to
think
speak.
the elephant in the room. I think it's that belief that we are free as a nationalistic type of thing. It's that nationalism, that story that wow, America is free, but they forget all the things that make us not free. They
How
don't,
regulated
that's-
they really
yeah,
are.
exactly. It's become just a norm to be regulated,
Sure.
and they make excuses as to why they are.
Or when it comes to like the Bill of Rights, it's like, so what do
Yeah.
they have to do now? Really, all they have to do is really just quarter soldiers in houses, and they violate every other one of them. Is that pretty much it now? Like,
so they
and
just
you kind of bring that up as an example, like, hey, so
Yeah.
all the reasons for the revolution, which one of them haven't they done yet? And it's almost all of them. When they listed that in the Declaration of Independence, they've almost kind of done every single one of them again, more or less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
that's true. So what do we think about this one? Do you think then that because we disagree that I think all of us disagree on that one, right?
yeah,
disagree with this.
Yeah, with the
this,
first
yeah,
one.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the one I kind of agree with, and this is not. I mean, and I think most people know me as I'm incredibly optimistic, and in the future, I see people, or at least the general population, and I don't know if he means the majority or not, but I'm taking it as he means majority. That
Yeah.
The problem is that general population is kind of a collectivist term.
yeah. So that's kind of a problem too. But so the thing is, just from personal examples, when I've talked to people, I ask them, well, so what do you think about freedom? And I've had experience with that. I've helped with other people's political campaigns. I've worked on my own in the past. And when I ask people, well, like if it comes up, what do you think about the word liberty or freedom? And more often than not, the answer I get is the ability to speak your mind, and they leave it at that. And don't get me wrong,
Well,
that's a very vital point of being free, is being able to say what is on your mind. But
That's more free speech.
yeah, exactly. It's
Right.
more free speech, but they don't
aspect.
think of all the other aspects of what it is being able to be free, being able to do what you want, so long as you don't hurt others.
Right.
I think a lot of people like I was saying before, I think a lot of people instinctually know though, but can't necessarily articulate a definition.
Or
If you
the-
were to talk with them about exactly how, in the government's mind, what they believe they have the right to regulate, then they would disagree that the government can regulate any of
Exactly.
a
Yeah, I
majority
mean,
of our, what we would think of as freedom.
Or I think a lot of people look at freedom as, oh, and they do have the right to regulate because freedom is chaotic. You know, freedom is something that
No,
should
anarchy they believe is chaotic.
I think that
We equate anarchy with freedom.
Right.
The general population, I think most people equate it with chaos. I don't think many people, if you were to ask them, is freedom chaotic, that they would agree with that
I've
statement.
experienced that. It was the same when I was running, many years ago, I was running for office and talked to them about freedom. It was, they knew what freedom was. It was just that they had to have a state, they had to have a government to quell all those people who would go
Well, the
over the
government
line.
keeps them in fear.
Right, keeps them in fear. But right, I got it. But that's what their whole thing was. Yeah, I get what freedom is, but we need to,
And then-
we need to keep a wrap on it because there are really weird people out there who would violate that freedom. Thugs,
There's also people who would say, oh, well, look at all these other countries where everyone is not even, they're less free than we are. But you should enjoy your freedoms.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
why should we stick with
Exactly.
being oppressed
Yeah.
in these manners?
Right.
We shouldn't allow that.
Yeah.
We need to press on for even more freedom.
We need to evolve. I mean, wouldn't it be nice to evolve this conversation that was started 250, 300 years ago to something new, something more progressive? Oh.
I kind of like where you're going with that because in my view, we think of like the philosophers of the Enlightenment that brought forth, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the general reorganization of the English state, and all that. But why is it that we think that the Enlightenment ended? You know what I mean? And I don't see any reason to think that the Enlightenment ended. If anything, it's just accelerated. We just don't call it the Enlightenment anymore. Like the advancements in technology, the very idea that we can send pictures the other side of the globe in a matter of a minute, if that.
Well,
push it,
I understand as a time period, or a movement that the Enlightenment was more of the start of.
Fair enough. I mean, it's good to kind of help out when we're talking about time frames. If we're talking about people, like, well, what time frame are we talking about? Right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
But I agree with you. I don't think. I think you do have a good point though when you're talking to teabaggers or constitutionalists or any of the minarchists in general,
or your various shades, colors of socialists, right?
Yeah, that they pay homage to these guys that spoke 200 years ago and don't give credence to the idea that we've made so much more progress in philosophy since then.
I think people have been in the fog of nationalism, the story of the state. And then when you're in the fog of a story, you don't think outside of that. And I think people are breaking out of it now. I think that's what's happening. People are breaking out of, maybe there's something different. Maybe we haven't taken that conversation of freedom to the next level. Let's look at it. Let's just discover it, what that is. And I happen to believe that enlightenment is the way for us to actually have this voluntarist culture, voluntarist community. So I don't think it's going to be 100% people who are enlightened, but it's going to be a small force that actually teaches the rest and shows that we can have what's the word for it? Sustainable community, maybe the one that we create in Arizona, where it's a sustainable voluntarist community that
I don't know what you're talking about.
That sustainable community will not be in Arizona will not be occurring. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I have no idea. Where is Arizona?
that one, I don't know, down south. That
Right, south. Got it. Good. Awesome.
Moving on.
Number 2.
I don't think we're done with number 1 yet.
We're not done with 1. Okay, that's cool. Should we do this as 2
topic.
parts, or how should we?
I think this is going to be a lot. I think this is going to be a multi-part discussion.
Okay, all right.
here.
This may be 2
Seeing
episodes.
as we're at almost 15 minutes now, it'll probably be a multi-part.
That's totally okay.
So Mike, you do agree with the statement, in generally speaking?
Generally speaking, unfortunately, yes. I think that either through education or just experience, I think a lot of people are so reliant on. I mean, just if we're just talking about numbers, 50% of the population is somehow reliant on government money to live. Either they're getting a paycheck as they're working for the government, or they're getting food stamps or other assistance. So if we're just talking about...
But do you think that they don't feel dependent by that?
I think they feel that they're dependent, and unfortunately, I couldn't say a majority confidently, but I do think there's a large part of them that it feels dependent and they don't.
Because I think there's a difference between knowing what freedom is and being free.
Yeah.
Fair enough. They can know what freedom is and have no action on it, right?
Yeah.
You know, just that sort of.
So what would you? So do you think that this topic then, or this belief, is necessary for you to have freedom personally?
I think if we go farther down the list, that's one of the statements made here, that just for me to have freedom, it's not necessary for the entire population.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying though is that this whole list is supposed to be 17 beliefs,
right,
that lead you to true freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So you think is this a belief that's necessary for you to move on to true freedom?
No, I don't. Maybe this may be one of those things where tomorrow you ask me the same question. Do you believe the general population does not know what freedom is? I might disagree and say, oh yeah, sure they do. You know, maybe I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. It's really kind of funny like that. I think all of us has had.
I think that's
like
a problem.
That, you know?
I think that problem arises when you use nebulous kind of terms like general population.
Well,
if
yeah.
you were to say, it doesn't claim that they believe they are free. It says, do they know what freedom is?
Right.
Fair.
So it's kind of it's a distinction that probably needs to be made.
Yeah, there are a couple of these I did have to read a few times where I was like, wait a minute, what does he?
I really think it's
that?
irrelevant to
personal freedom
to be a step to your own personal freedom. I really do.
Yeah.
I think it's
what
irrelevant.
others?
I mean, it's a
not,
good conversation
really,
topic, but I don't think it's a step in my personal.
Shouldn't affect your
No,
own.
it
Other
doesn't
people
affect-
shouldn't
No.
affect your own
Right,
freedom.
exactly.
Now perhaps it's just worded poorly.
Well,
Okay, so how
maybe-
could you word it in a way that you thought, with the intent that this guy...
I think the intent of this is to maybe say that
They believe they are free.
no.
They are not, or
No, that what other people believe about freedom is immaterial to your freedom. I that's kind of the idea I get from that statement,
And I guess
and I would agree with that statement.
I should be clear, though, I guess maybe just because, again, it's worded fairly vaguely in a sense, because we then have to define general population and then freedom. Right? Is general population a majority or not a majority? How are you defining freedom, etc. But in my opinion, I do believe the entirety of the population is perfectly capable of understanding what freedom is.
yeah.
I do,
See, like
yeah.
that. So I guess maybe like to explain that a little bit, I totally believe everybody I've ever met is capable of understanding it.
Right.
It's just a matter of, are they exposed to the idea? You know, do they have the patience to listen to me blabber on for however long?
So what does
And
that
if you
have
were-
to do
And
with
if you were
freedom?
to explain actual freedom to them, you could then make them realize they're not actually free at this point.
That actually
Right.
could be the reason why they put it there.
Yeah,
Is
so that
that,
makes sense.
you know, they really don't get that they're not free. You know, they might understand the definition of it, but they not
Sure.
realize that they're not.
I think
really
that's
free.
the intent.
That probably is the intent, and I would agree with that if that is the intent. I would agree. Most
may not-
people are just oblivious to it because they're so caught up in the automaticity of life. You know, just I wake up, I go to work, I take care of my kids, I pick them up from school, and you know, it's like the automaticity.
Not
Yeah.
easy.
It's not. Yeah, it isn't. It's what we've gotten ourselves into, and to break out of that could be the conversation that we have.
Or
Yeah.
I think a lot of people what it is you know, this is kind of one of those things that I can't remember. It wasn't an Enlightenment philosopher who said this, and I can't remember who it is for the life of me.
I'm sorry, say that again.
It was an Enlightenment philosopher that said this, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it's something if I remember correctly, it was an Enlightenment philosopher. It may not have been, but that people are okay in a gilded cage. You know what I mean?
It's
Hey,
gold,
look, it's
yeah,
pretty.
it's
You
nice,
know, like,
it's got food.
yeah,
it's
the
got
big
a
screen
cushy
TV,
couch,
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another way to say it maybe is it's difficult to free men from the chains that they revere.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
I like
There
that.
you
That
go.
was good.
Yeah.
I forget who
That's
said
a
that.
really
So
good
I think,
one. I
I think
like
we
that
could
one.
blow through number 2 because I think we've pretty much gone
What's
over
number
it,
2?
actually.
What was number 2?
Let's talk about. Let's just say
Move
what
on?
it is real
Okay.
quick.
Let's go
Number
through the
2.
motions on this.
Number 2 is the activities of the general population are not good indications of what and how you can be free and at what cost. So I think we kind of already discussed that.
Mm-hmm.
I
agree. You know, I found with a lot of things that if you do what the general population does, you may end up in a bad scene. If you do the exact opposite or be careful about how you're sailing for...
How do you mean define bad scene?
Okay, you're asking me to define a phrase I use like 20 times every day. Bad scene.
Well, just because I understand what you're saying.
Right. But on the other side of the lens, right. Bad scene would... Oh, God. Bad scene would be...
If you do that, you might have a bad time.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Bad scene. You know, you're putting yourself in a bad situation.
When you
know.
French fry, when you're supposed to pizza,
Would something come after you? Bad scene?
Bad scene is...
you'll be less free.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay.
Which is a
Thank you.
bad
Thank
scene
you.
to me
Alright.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
I like my freedom.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I've never had to define bad scene before. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, I completely threw you off.
No, it's wonderful, actually. That was really kind of put me in a spot like, I've never had to define this term I use every day.
So people have an effect on my freedom. Well, they do have an effect on it.
That's not what this says.
What is it again?
The activities of the general population are not good indications of when and how you can be free and at what cost.
Yeah, I have no comment, so.
Fair enough.
Cheers.
I respect this.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can move on from that one. So, number 3, an overall decrease in the freedom for the general population does not necessarily mean a decrease in freedom for you unless your actions are essentially the same as those of the general population.
That's kind of like number 2.
That is very
tied to it.
Yeah. I think a lot of these are...
No, because that one could actually be tied to the state. A decrease in freedom for the general population that has an effect on me.
It does.
It's,
As long as your activities are tied to the...
That's the kind
well,
of...
I live in my community. I mean, if they've got stops every, checkpoints at every corner, yeah, that affects me. I have to stop. I have to tell them, either fuck you or, show my papers or whatever. So.
But like the general population, as it says, you're also driving. You are acting the same way as the general population.
Where's your jetpack, Christy? Get past those
I
checkpoints.
know.
Jetpack over it.
It does say necessarily, though. So I guess it would be something in this that you would be able to get
does not
around.
necessarily mean a decrease in freedom from you, unless your actions are essentially the same as those of general. My actions. I live in the general population, so I don't live out in some boony place.
Now,
the point of this is to lead you to more freedom.
I got it, but I, at this point in my life, have chosen to live with the general population. So,
But are there actions, though? Let's take checkpoints, for example.
Right.
Are there actions that you could take to get around checkpoints? I would say absolutely.
yeah, I could.
We don't protest the checkpoints for no reason.
Right.
Yeah. So there are people.
Yeah, but what if I don't check my
here's the thing,
computer
though.
and I just
But
shit, they're there.
There are text messages sent out before all the
But
checkpoints in Escondido.
I'm not on your text message thing. So what I'm saying is I don't know.
This can't be arranged.
So
Often we're out there as well, warning them when they.
Okay.
Then what I'm saying is, if your actions are signing up for the text message list,
Right.
or protesting or any of this, then those will not decrease your freedom because then you are able to get around them. So there are actions you can take in order to not.
Yeah, but it says an overall decrease in freedom from the general population does not necessarily mean, but I think
so that
it does.
necessarily means
I think
that you can take actions that
Yes,
make you
can.
have more freedom
I
than
agree.
general.
I agree.
So
but
That's what this is saying.
So it's a step. So people who sign up for text message alerts and
All
get
right.
them and say,
All right.
hey, look, this is where the checkpoint is. Then that you still have the freedom
Yeah,
to
you're right.
avoid those.
There
There
are-
are steps you can take. So I would agree with that because specifically on checkpoints.
I almost agree. I agree on this too. And the example I was thinking of in my head, I go, well, okay, so what could I do differently that would make me be more free than what, say, again, he uses the term general population. Well, what could I do? Well, when it comes to a lot of where, all the control mechanisms in the world today, it comes from money, because that's the easy one. If you can control the money, you can control almost everything. Not everything, but almost everything.
Bankers run the world.
Right. So
Let's start a bank.
so what I was thinking in my head, I go, well, if I
Bitcoin,
exactly. If I'm using Bitcoin and most of the population isn't, unfortunately, when I had a friend that told me this. He wanted to go deposit, I think, like $50 into his own checking account. And they're like, "Can I see an ID?" And he goes, "I'm making a deposit." And they're like, "Well, I still need to ID." He's like, "What? I'm giving you money."
They've been giving that to me plenty of times, asking for my ID, and I've been there for a decade, never been asked for an ID.
Really?
Right.
And if I'm making a deposit, it's absolutely ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
So things like Bitcoin.
Yeah, you can get around that sort of nonsense
So
of
basically,
Okay.
I would agree
Alright.
that there are actions that you can
There
take.
may be some that
to
affect the
thwart
general public, but
government
not everything.
tyranny.
But yeah, there are some.
So
So
it doesn't
necessarily.
necessarily.
Yes,
I think
necessarily.
that's the
All
key
right,
word in this
necessarily is
one.
probably, yeah. Okay.
Good job on
Yeah,
necessarily.
you did it.
whoever-
You got it. All right, what's the next one? Or is that one done?
What does everybody
We're
think?
good on that.
Yeah.
We discussed it thoroughly.
you did actually. Yeah. you
The
did.
phrase of the day brought to you by the
Yeah,
Children's
then
Health
it's-
Institute.
I don't know if we can move on to the next one though,
Okay.
because I think the next one's going to be
Longer? Oh,
a long
yes,
discussion.
okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I was looking at that one too.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a
That
bad
is definitely
one.
something
Right.
we might need more time.
All right.
So
Oh, wait, but
buttons.
yeah. All right. Yeah, I really don't agree with that one.
Yeah, that is something
Yeah,
we're probably going to
yeah,
need
yeah,
more
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Well, can we?
But we
let-
we could tease them.
How about this? We'll read it,
Yeah.
and so everybody can
Here,
argue.
you get the
You get a teaser,
teaser
for next
for
week.
this one.
Yeah, so you can argue with your
Yeah.
boyfriend and or
Yeah,
girlfriend
it's a
until
good
next
one.
year.
It's a good
About this particular, or until next episode,
Yeah.
because we'll explain it to you next time, right?
yes. So-
Number 4.
So number 4 is a rational person is only interested in freedom he can obtain in his own lifetime.
In 1970, would they have? I don't know.
That's something we'll have to discuss for next week.
Granted, we're talking about the original list of 17 was written in 1971, 72, something like that. But if we're putting it in a modern context, again, what is it? A rational person is only interested in freedom he can obtain in his own time. I disagree.
I totally disagree. Totally. I wouldn't be
Well-
still doing this if I agreed with that.
We'll discuss it next week.
Now, if we're talking about freedom, are we talking about freedom for everybody, or perhaps freedom for sentient robots, or is that
I think
Not
we're getting
the
to that topic.
robots.
So we're gonna have to save it for the next episode.
Okay, so
Because once again, I
Robot
think we
sex.
forgot.
We
Robot
forgot to talk
sex.
about
we
robot
didn't
sex.
have time for
Oh
robot
man,
sex.
we keep
so-
promising it to the
Oh,
viewers.
jeez, you're just gonna.
No, it'll happen. Mark my words, we will talk about robot sex. Right here, see that? We're talking about robot sex one episode. We will, I promise.
It's gonna need plenty of beer,
Plenty of beer.
just like robots.
That's a robot. How's that supposed to turn me on? Here's some beer and liquor. That'll do it, right?
Dude, beer
So-
and liquor always does it for me.
As always, it's been fun.
Of course.
I think we'll
Cheers, guys.
The
have a
list-
good day.
Conversation.
Have a good one. The list will be completed.